on a Wednesday, giving you some type of escape from reality with the very fun, fake world of professional wrestling. A very tumultuous time, specifically in this one country you may know, known as the United States of America. Very tense time, but I don't want to get into politics. I want to get into wrestling. I'm not alone. I'm Kevin Kellum of WrestleZone.com, joining us from the news desk over there in central Pennsylvania, where I bet things are quite tense. A cage match of reality, if you will, going down in Pennsylvania right now. John Clark, how are you? You watched NXT. I watched AEW Dynamite. We're going to get into all of it. Some big things on AEW tonight. A very intense promo. So a lot of hype for this Saturday's Full Gear. What are the big notes coming out of NXT tonight?
So like I mentioned with you a little earlier, not a whole lot of big things tonight. No announcements for any kind of upcoming pay-per-view. No, obviously, since they haven't announced a pay-per-view, there's been no matches announced for that pay-per-view, and really no serious build to anything other than Pat McAfee and his group against Undisputed Era. That was really the only storyline progression we got tonight.
Definitely. And tell us how you guys are feeling about that. Hit that like button if there's something you like that you saw on the show. If there's a comment you like and you're watching it live, go ahead and hit that. If you're with us on YouTube or Facebook, don't forget to turn those notifications on. It's a follow on Facebook. You got to ring the bell over on YouTube for that good stuff. And of course, plenty on the podcast side for us to get into. Michael texting in saying both shows were good. I guess we have some people doing the double screen thing. I couldn't do it tonight with the election results. It was too much to watch two shows and refresh CNN and NBC News at the same time. So it was too much to do that. But let's just get into it. Let's cover AEW first here. They have the pay-per-view this weekend. They have some things going on that seem quite intense and are building to a head. And you guys go ahead and sound off and tell us what you think here. A lot of highlights from the show, some very, very good matches that felt like they did a good job of putting the final polish on a lot of different things. A lot of great video packages. We have the return of Pac. He'll be back in AEW at some point from England. He's been in isolation for 7 months. They did a promo where he said he was a greatest bastard, and he's walking at the beach, and he's so angry at the beach. So he's itching to get back, and they're still looking like $1 million, by the way. So we'll see him back at some point. They did some matches to build for next week Dynamite, so they're still keeping the house warm, even though they have a pay-per-view this weekend. But the pay-per-view is the main focus of the show. Plenty of highlights on the show, specifically Young Bucks versus Private Party. This was a banger of a tag team match. The Bucks need to remind you that one-on-one, they have banger tag team matches. They need to look like baby faces in this one, and they've been looking like heels, even though they're supposed to have this dream match against the real heels, the AEW Tag Team Champions, FTR, the team that jumped from WWE over to AEW. And recently, one half of that team, Dax Harwood, I hope I'm saying that correctly, was critical of how the build has gone, and he's performing in it, saying, I wish this felt like more of a dream match. That could also be attributed to no fans being there as well. You know, a lot of people thought they would save this match. But this was hell of a tag team match. Private Party did not look like a bunch of jabrones. They get to work through the entire commercial break. This is one of those times where I thought a picture-in-picture worked during commercial break. The hell of a tag team match. Private Party were fending off so many different near falls, but it came down to that BTE trigger, even though he had a bad ankle. Matt Jackson was able to pull it out. He sold it the whole time. And, of course, FTR came out and attacked him at the end. I almost thought they didn't need that to happen. I thought they could have just, teased that. Since they've already done it. You know, they've already injured the ankle. They had Chris Jericho on commentary. Were they being too cocky by having this match just a few days before the big Dream title match? Were the Bucks pushing it? Was their hubris giving them too much? What do you think? Bucks, FTR this Saturday?
Well, here's something interesting about that I want to kind of get your input on. So, do you think they've built this as a heel-on-heel thing, or how do you think the Bucks have been built, and what do you think is their main goal in this match? Do you think that it is a heel-heel thing? What do you think?
Well, it is worth noting before I get into whether it's a heel-heel thing, it's win or lose in terms of this. Obviously, every title match is win or lose, right? But for the Bucks, they added what many people were critical of in terms of a stipulation that if they don't win this match with FTR, they can never challenge for the AEW tag team titles they haven't won, and a company they started. All right, they lost to the Private Party in the tournament a year ago. It was the second episode ever of Dynamite, and on that episode, that was a fantastic match. There was some good history and hype just to make this match work, but really it was about getting them ready for Saturday, and they look ready for Saturday even with the injury. They've kind of cleared off that spiciness they tried to throw on this thing, where they tried to make it too spicy in sense of, leave it to the lame white guy from the Midwest to say it's too spicy for me. But no, really, the thing is, they look like baby faces getting ready for this dream tag team match, which they should have looked like the entire time. If the thing is that they're the team who just couldn't get it done and they're this great team and they aren't living up to the potential in the company they created, I get that story. But then putting this extra, like, if you don't win this match, it's over with. I would understand if it was a rematch. If they had the match with FTR and then the next pay-per-view, they're like, we're going to do it again. But if you guys don't win, you can never challenge for these titles. Like, it feels a little bit too early. That throws a cloud of maybe possibly predictability on top of this, I don't know. I mean,
wait. So now that you say that there possibly is some predictability behind this,
that doesn't mean it's bad,
but to you,
predictability is not bad.
What is that predictability to you?
That I feel the Bucks have to win this. So I think the idea of the selling point for AEW fans is don't skip this pay-per-view. You're going to see the Bucks finally win the tag team titles. And I think you can't say that, you can't say, watch this show, they're going to win. That's not how it works. You have to make it seem like.
Is this still one of those $59.99 shows? What's the price for this thing?
I believe it's $50. It's in that range. Yeah. So you're going to get this through BR Live. You're going to get this through BR Live. And so that is traditional pay-per-view. I know you're down on that but you're younger. So you've been conditioned for the last 6 years, $10 a month, WWE Network, right?
Yeah, but even at the very, very end of the WWE pay-per-view era, I was only getting them so often.
Mm-hmm. Miller Book says, what if Marty shows up and helps the Bucks win? I believe he's mentioning Marty Scurll. I don't think that's going to happen. Now, if it happens, I don't mind being wrong, but there is no rumor, no report, no indication whatsoever that Marty Scurll, who is dealing with some pretty serious legal issues right now and was at one point signed to a long-term contract with Ring of Honor, will be allowed to collaborate in any way whatsoever outside of Ring of Honor and that deal with AEW. Don't see that happening. Don't mind putting that out there or squashing that for you guys. Sorry if it feels like I'm killing your dreams. Thomas Brian Robley texting in said, match feels like a retread of Cody versus Jericho. Same pay-per-view, same situation. It was anticipated enough. It didn't need it, right? It just didn't need that add-on. This is Bucks versus FTR. This is the match fans wanted. I think that could have sold it enough, right? But I'm excited. I do think this can be that great match that it needs to be. And they have all of the elements and the platform and the anticipation. And maybe it's like WWE's been recently, where they build up matches, but people question it, and then the match happens and it's great. Like we got at Hell in a Cell. I think AEW kind of has the same situation because it's hard to read these things without organic, fulfilled, full fan reactions. Yes, I know AEW has fans.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely get what you're saying there, and I agree.
Mm. Other people chiming in here about AEW. Don't worry, we will cover NXT in the second half of the show. Stephen Chambers saying Mox versus Kingston is going to be a good match, but I believe Mox will retain his title until Jericho gets his rematch. Let's talk about that. Another big highlight from this show. We don't go in order segment to segment. We just cover the big things. You want the full results? We got them match for match, segment for segment at WrestleZone.com. We're covering the big points here. Stephen, bring this up. A intense face-off in the second hour of the show. I thought this was the best talking segment of the show, even though they kind of ended the show with the talking segment between Eddie Kingston, who just did a fantastic one-on-one 20-minute interview while he's driving down to Jacksonville in FaceTime with our very own Bill Pritchard. You can get that in our podcast feed for you or on our YouTube or our Facebook. If you're a fan of Eddie Kingston, you're a fan of a guy who says exactly what he is. He's not a gimmick. He is this guy. Like, I can tell you for a fact. And you get this intense show off where they're mentioning how they were friends. John Moxley brought up his mother's name, how you're doing this for your mother. And it was almost like they were baby facing Eddie Kingston in this. And they were trying to throw a lot of intensity. The word intensity was used on commentary 5 different times in like 3 minutes. But this was intense. They were forehead to forehead. Kingston was losing his mind. And the ruling with this was that they couldn't touch each other or the match would be off. So you knew that this was just going to be them saying tough words to it. And they said a lot. And to the point where Kingston wouldn't even give up the microphone. He had to hold the bottom of it while John was trying to talk, and then he backed away. And they were like right in front of each other's faces. This was really, really intense. Kingston went off and said, I hate that I had to sell out and become something I don't want to be just so I could have this opportunity with you. And I have to go and tell my mother that she doesn't have a daughter from me because of that. He's pointing at the title. She doesn't have a daughter-in-law from me because of that. This is everything I've wanted. This is everything I've had to work up to, and I've had to give up so much to get it. It was super intense. It was just gasoline on the fire. And I got to say, I know Pat McAfee had a fun character night in terms of being a performer and a lot of things. And I loved what I saw of him, and I'm looking forward to checking out NXT. He became a cameraman. We'll cover that in a little bit. But the talking segment of the night for me is this. This is Eddie Kingston just throwing it on. He said it in the interview. He's not going to be a 5-star wrestling match bell-to-bell guy. He's going to be a character performer. His right hand will be better than any paradigm shift or V-trigger. That's in the interview as well. And this was great. What do you think? Moxley versus Kingston. I know a lot of people think Kingston can't win this title, but the storyline is there. They've really built this up. He never tapped out. You choked me out, but you never tapped me out. And I quit match with 2 guys, really personal issue, and a title at hand. This is the best story in AEW right now.
Do you think they pull the trigger on the title change?
If they want to really make some headlines, or at least, I don't know if it would make some headlines, but I mean, if they want to do something different with the title before they have a big showdown with maybe, you talk about that short list of mega stars that have that super name, that sell the t-shirts, that bring in people. I'm not saying that Eddie Kingston isn't a draw. I'm saying Eddie Kingston is the breakout draw. Like, he's becoming a big name now, and he's finally like the hype around him is now becoming fulfilled. Does that timing line up with now you get to be a world champion? That is suspect to me. It feels, coming out of this promo, maybe even this interview he did with Bill Pritchard, it feels very 50-50.
It feels like the last person anybody would have expected to be the one to get the title off of him.
Mm-hmm. I got to ask you the question. I don't know if Eddie Kingston can win the title, but if it happens, that's a huge story, right?
Yes and no, in a way. Yes, because it's just like, for the hardcores, for the AEW fans, this is like an unbelievable thing where they really did this. But for me, if you're a casual fan and you don't really know who he is that well, you might almost compare this to like when Jinder Mahal won the WWE title. It's almost like that surprising yet disappointing moment where, like, well, we were expecting something bigger, like Kenny Omega to be the one to take the title off of him. So it can be good and bad.
I think if they do pull the trigger on Eddie Kingston, it would not be a long title run. All right. And that's not a bad thing. Everyone thinks being a transitional champion is the worst. It's not. It's really, really not. You get to be the champion. All right. It's not. I'm looking forward to it. Jon Moxley did a great job of making this seem serious and personal as well. So kudos to him. Other highlights on this show, we got a lot of fire thrown in the gasoline of Adam Hangman Page versus Kenny Omega, the Eliminator Tournament final. The winner of this gets the shot at the next champion. They did 2 separate interviews. Kenny Omega looking very comfortable and very in his place, very throwing a lot of swagger out there. Not Jack swagger, not Jack Hager, his own swagger. He thinks this is, I feel great for Adam, and very passive aggressive, all that stuff. The more interesting promo was later in the night with Jim Ross sitting down with Adam Hangman Page, who was drinking and was kind of like sitting sideways and was throwing back a bourbon or a whiskey, and mentioned that, when he came to AEW, he said he was going to be a world champion, and this is the closest he's getting back to that picture since the start of the company, when he was in the first big world title match with Jericho and back in the day, over a year now. This has been the longest built match, I feel, for the pay-per-view in terms of the time that has been put into this, the long teases, the weeks and gaps of not doing anything with the storyline, only to revive it. But mind you, AEW, this is another example of they don't have a pay-per-view every month. You know what I mean? They don't have a pay-per-view every month, so they don't have to tell the story the same way as they do. So what do you think, Page versus Omega this Saturday? This is another big showdown. This feels like a big pay-per-view show. I'm starting to feel, coming out of the show, like last week, I didn't feel the hype, but I feel like Dynamite really got some nails put into the coffin to bury all the hype they need for this Saturday.
All things aside, this match, for me, technically was made official about 3 or 4 weeks ago when this tournament started, because everybody knew what we were going to get.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with all that being said, this does have the potential to be one of the best matches on the card.
Mm-hmm.
I think they need to make this a very good back and forth match where the winner looks very strong and is put into the spot to eventually take the championship off of John. That is how they need to do it. And I presume that this would probably happen at what do they call it? Revolution? Their New Year's pay-per-view? Is it
I think
Revolution?
they're gonna have a show in February, so that would be
But
the next
is that
time.
what it's called? Revolution?
I don't have it in front of me. Revolution is a show they did in August, but they aren't committed to like doing the same pay per views every. I think some of those could be different.
Oh,
We don't know
well,
what
okay, well, just for the sake of that, that's how they've done it before. I'm gonna assume and just predict
Mhm,
that it'll be Revolution in February, just like it was this past year. But
mhm.
nevertheless, I think that is what they're building towards right now.
I enjoyed it. Later on in the night, they teased that as well when they got in the ring after the Young Bucks private party thing and the FTR attempt attack wasn't a complete attack, but they got there. And I thought maybe they would do some physicality there, but they didn't. We did get some short matches. Nyla Rose squashing Red Velvet, kind of a glorified job match to build up to Sheeta and Nyla. I loved Nyla and Sheeta last time they were in the ring, and it was on a pay-per-view. It was a big one. This does show a lot of the signs of a lack of depth with AEW's women's division. This is one of the, I mean, it wasn't a bad match. Red Velvet got her stuff in. She got to do her dance where she's choking her with her foot in the corner, just a little bit, the character stuff. But they had Brandy at ringside with her, but it felt kind of unnecessary because it was all about this post-match promo from Vicky Guerrero just going off on Sheeta, who is at ringside. I think it's okay. I'm not super hot on the match. They did add Allison Kay versus Serena Deeb for the NWA Women's title, and that'll be on the buy-in show. So they kind of made a shift. Originally, they said that John Silver is going to take on Orange Cassidy on the buy-in, their free pre-show that'll air before the main card. They have swapped that. The Silver Orange Cassidy match has been moved up because of changes with Scorpio Sky and Sean Spears. Unfortunately, Scorpio Sky removed due to a COVID-19 exposure within the last 2 weeks. He has tested negative. So good on AEW for doing that and just taking the precautions that you need to. And do what you need to do. And that's going to happen. It's happened to WWE a handful of times. It's going to happen to AEW. Just got to hope that people be safe. So that's how the undercard is kind of coming together on this show. It is really all about Bucks versus FDR, Hangman Page versus Kenny Omega, and Moxley versus Kingston. Those are your three top matches on this pay-per-view. They are doing Sammy Guevara versus Matt Hardy. They teased that out of a noisy match early on in the show and did some stuff outside the ring. They had Miro versus Trent. I like this match. This was to build up to Miro and Kip Sabian versus the Best Friends. A ridiculous storyline over fighting over a broken video game with Miro, formerly known as Rusev, who came over and is in this kind of like comedy tag team thing. But here's the thing. Tonight, they gave him a singles match, and he finally looked like a monster. He finally looked like just a badass monster with all the noise going on outside the ring. They had way too many things going on outside the ring. I would have liked this match a whole lot more if they just let this guy go and whomp on this guy. But they got to get so much stuff on top of the ring. Sometimes it's just distracting, and it feels just like slow down. Steven Chambers, he was feeling AEW was a better show last week. Here's the thing. I like this show a lot more than last week's show. I like the show a lot more.
That's what he's saying. He was saying tonight's show is better than last week.
Yeah, I sorry, I misread that. I'm moving too fast. Gotta let the caffeine not take over my mind too much here. Other people with different takes. Is Anthony Green, is Sting going to show up? Yes, there was sort of a Sting moment.
I was going to ask you that just because, the rumors, everything with WWE pulling his toys, pulling his stuff. Maybe, but I personally don't see it, at least as him ever being an in-ring performer part of it, but
he's a guy who says he wants to go and have one more match. But my thing is, if he has anything, it's with The Undertaker. It's something with The Undertaker, but I don't know. I hear the speculation. It's just speculation. So I don't see Sting showing up. But later on the night, the main event was Cody and new members of his Nightmare family. I guess Nightmare family is a faction. It's still unclear if he's in the Elite or not. So he's there with the Gun Club, Austin Gunn and Billy Gunn. Very fun tag team match against the Dark Order. Colt Cabana represented in there as well with, I believe, 10 and John Silver. And John Silver got into it with Orange Cassidy again. This is like, I think the third time he did a run-in on the show. So that was wild. I liked it. It built up nicely to what is going on here with this pay-per-view. And Cody and his team get the big win. Austin Gunn got a win. This is a huge win for him. And this is the main event angle. So this is the match they decided to go on last with. So I'm curious what NXT went on last with. And the Gun Club, and I don't like that name, Gun Club and Cody are the winners, and up in the rafters, in the 200 section of a very empty daily place, mostly empty. There's fans there, but is a spotlight on Darby, looking like Sting in 1997, looking in the rafters. All right. He had a promo earlier in the night where he used a junky car to run down someone wearing a mask like Cody. He bashed a window with a skateboard, because he thinks he can't be the face of TNT and TNT doesn't want him to do it. Cody brought that up in this promo saying, no, I would love if you were the face of TNT. I actually gave you a match so you could actually fight your way into this promotion. And I'm the only one who supported you. But here's the problem. You don't get to be the face of TNT because I am. And it was tweener heelish. So you just kind of pick your favorite in this match. I did like how they kind of fulfilled that out. I mean, this is a pretty stacked pay-per-view card. Well, I didn't even bring up MJF and Wardlow being successful over Ortiz, I believe Ortiz, yes. Ortiz and Sammy Guevara. And that match opened the show. Strong, fun, solid match, nothing barn burner, gave MJF the win. And he's walking on the ring, and I think he's not going to get into it with Chris Jericho. They were doing the song and dance thing, and this is just like a friendly rivalry that could become intense at Full Gear. And then it became intense again. MJF tackles Chris Jericho. A reminder, MJF, if he beats Chris Jericho this Saturday at the pay-per-view, he is in the inner circle, and I guess Wardlow comes with him since he's contracted to Wardlow. I don't know how that goes. That's the match I'm most suspect of, but that's a good question. When you don't know the ending of the match, you get to find out at the pay-per-view, right? So I'm in the way. I wonder, does the inner circle turn on Jericho? I didn't feel it tonight. They were kind of railing around him a little bit. So who knows? Maybe he upsets them of some kind here. Other people with their takes on what is going on. A lot of people want to talk about that Sting story. I see Sting is done. I don't see Sting showing up in this, but I don't mind being wrong. I don't mind being wrong at all. Jay Feliciano says that he is the socially distanced champion. Yeah, he was all the way up there. He was all the way up in the 200 section when they shot that promo there to end the show. Continue to give your comments here about it. Anthony Garcia saying Eddie and Mox will bleed. I see Kingston with a huge upset, so he feels that there's a possibility of a change of hands there. I enjoyed tonight's AEW. I loved it. Great distraction from the world. Sometimes when the world is crazy, you got to be a little bit more reliable on your wrestling. I hope that, honestly, throughout everything that's going on this week, I know a lot of people are stressed out by it. They just want to get away from it. You can't really get away from it. I want to say, hey, I hope you're enjoying our shows. I hope you're enjoying what we're doing. I hope we're giving you some peace, some escape from everything here, and enjoy it. So here's what I thought of tonight's AEW. The 1 to 10. 1 being you had to wait 4 hours to vote. 10 being you walked in 5 minutes, real easy, and you got your sticker and you were socially distant and safe. All right. So I'm gonna smack down my vote with this number for tonight's AEW Dynamite. You say I give it a 2. Stop it, John Clark. You're being ridiculous. You're being ridiculous with your NXT bias. I give tonight's AEW Dynamite an 8. An 8.5. I loved it. Walking out of the show, I wanted to watch a pay-per-view. All right? Walking out of the show, I said, bring me home. I want to watch the pay-per-view. 8.5. Loved it. This is why Dynamite is good. They've built up some storylines. They did some nice, tidy promos with it. It has some very fun matches in the ring as well. If there's anything I missed in the comments and you want to hear more about it, whether you're watching on demand or later on or listening, whatever, just hit me up on Twitter at KevKelm. Let's get over to NXT. What are they doing tonight?
Yeah, so NXT had a lot of good action tonight, a lot of good matches. Like I mentioned briefly earlier, not a whole lot of storyline development, but getting into some of the action here, let's get to what I thought was the best part of the night right off the bat, which was Pat McAfee, Pete Dunne, and the NXT Tag Team Champions pulling up in a white Suburban, getting out of it and coming straight into the arena, and just cutting an excellent promo. Mostly McAfee making fun of Undisputed Era and how they used to be, king of the crop, but now they are nothing. They're just, basically chopped liver. And it ends with basically there's an Undisputed Era banner, and they say this banner will never be raised to the rafters. So they take the banner off, they put it in a garbage can. Pete Dunne dumps gasoline in it, lights it on fire, and it erupts in flames. And they make their way out to the parking lot to leave, and they are attacked from behind by Killian Dane. But Killian Dane, and let me preface this by saying when um, Pat McAfee and his gang came to the ring to do the promo, they actually interrupted a match between Drake Maverick, Killian Dane, and Everrise. So that is why Killian Dane attacked them in the parking lot. Regardless, they did an angle where Pete Dunne closed the driver car door on Killian Dane's head. And when they pulled away from the parking lot, they zoomed in on Killian Dane, who was bleeding from the ear and the mouth. And then they said that he was going to a local hospital. But
did it look good? Because when you do
yes, it did look good.
You gotta work that. You gotta gimmick that car.
They had the camera behind the car, so you couldn't see. Like obviously, he was probably doing like this. You couldn't see that part of it.
But it looked brutal. It looked you feel they were safe about it, but it looked brutal. Because when you do that, that's kind of risky.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's very clear and very obvious that we're going to get Undisputed Era versus Pat McAfee and this gang in a 4-on-4 match of some sort. Speculation is War Games, but nothing announced yet.
War Games!
What do you think of it?
War Games! It only ends in one place. War Games!
What
you have to say it the way William Regal said it when he made the match. War Games!
What do you think?
Dude, this is great. This is if you couldn't get Finn Balor, his jaw is wired shut, and he's your champion, and he just got the belt, and then he got hurt, right? And then you had
no mention of him again, too, by the way.
No mention of him again, too. But mind you, it's 6 weeks. We're going to have to wait a while and see what happens with him. So if you don't have a world champion, and you don't want to strip somebody and do another, like, multi-man thing to crown a new champion, go into the multi-man fracas. Bring in the heat magnet that Pat McAfee is. A guy who is maybe, I mentioned that Eddie Kingston is one of the best talkers right now in wrestling. You want to talk about people who can talk up a match, sell you into the virtual seat, right? Pat McAfee is doing that. This guy is a promoter. He can talk miles a minute with his mouth, and I would love already. I was like, put this guy in a WrestleMania angle. Put him in the corner of somebody in a big match in WrestleMania. Get him on Fox. Get him on there. This guy's a huge star. But then think about it. If you're NXT, you get a huge star, a guy who has an internet following that is in the millions, right? And also, he's still got great matches. In terms of celebrities who came in and took it seriously, he went out there and had a banger. Like maybe one of the best matches of the year. Definitely the best celebrity pro wrestling match of all time. Maybe some of the biggest stuff we've seen since Andy Kaufman. I love Pat McAfee. I love that he's assembling this like legion of wrestling doom to come down on Undisputed Era, who now are like lionized. You're waiting for them to come back. And they didn't just give you they didn't do parody booking. They didn't do like last week, the Pat McAfee's team looked great. This week, Undisputed Era looks great. Like you've seen on Raw and SmackDown before, right? No, it was Undisputed Era they're gonna fall. This is Empire Strikes Back.
They are the Kings of NXT is what they call themselves.
Like, and I like that name, the Kings, right? Like that works, right? The King. And then when he goes somewhere else, we're the Kings of Raw. We're the Kings of WWE. Like that, and just you don't have to wear a crown or anything like that. It's all sports and bravado.
The War Games match is going to be absolutely phenomenal. I can't believe I'm saying this, but you have 8 phenomenal in-ring performers, and yes, I'm calling McAfee a phenomenal in-ring performer because in
limited skills.
Okay, no, yeah. But in War Games, it's easy to hide that.
Yeah, absolutely easy to hide that. And he's a guy where you don't even have to put him in the cage until like the final.
And I am
10-15 minutes.
I'm glad to see Oni and Danny getting the attention, the championships that they deserve. They have put their time in NXT, and it's finally paying off.
The man who's with us on every single show, maybe the number one WrestleZone wrap-up listener and viewer, Mr. James Espanto Fernando Taguay. You like the gunshot there. Here we go. He goes, Big John, if War Games were to be in front of a live crowd, would you go? Hell yeah, dude. I went to War Games last year. I went to TakeOver. With WWE, they had the residency. I believe I went to all 4 shows. Maybe I didn't go to the SmackDown. All right, so I went to all 4 shows. No, I didn't go to the SmackDown.
I went to
3 of the 4. But I went to that War Games show. War Games is kind of hard to see live. because you have 2 cages around a ring.
Watch
and unless
the Tron.
Oh, no, you can see everything on the Tron, and it's fun because you're there with the crowd, right? And I was at the Allstate Arena. It's one of the best wrestling venues in the world. I was 100 levels, so I was like 10, 12 rows off, which is great. That is the best seat. I think in wrestling, especially when people go to arena wrestling shows, they always want to be on the floor. No, you always should want to be in the 100 level. You get to actually see everything. You don't have to stand up all the time.
Unless you're in the front row.
You know what? That's sort of okay too, because I went to an
TV time.
TV time to it. Yeah, you want to get on camera, right? Who needs the Thunderdome? You can do it for real. But like I said, this isn't a match. This War Games match, there's no way the time frame works where we're gonna have a vaccine. Everyone's gonna be open. That's probably not gonna be until sometime next summer. I feel that if you go to a War Games show, it really depends on where your seats are. Almost like when you go to see a Hell in a Cell and people are excited. I've heard that from a lot of fans who brought up everything with going to see like an elimination chamber, like they couldn't see too much, or there was just obstructive views with it and stuff like that. Almost like when you go to see a WrestleMania too, because the girders around the stage and everything. So I'm of the thought that it's a fun thing, but watch where your seat is. Have you been to like a fun cage match or something like that had a structure like Hell in a Cell, and you like, this is cool, but I just can't see this or I can't see that?
Yes, Elimination Chamber this year.
All right, so you know what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, it's still cool to be there, but there is this kind of like muted tone in some areas of the arena because they're waiting for like the delayed thing on the screen or something like that to kind of work them through all that stuff.
Yeah.
But on top of that, though, I've seen Owen versus Brett in terms of a cage match. I don't know if you want to call War Games a cage match. You can. It's 2 cages, right? It was one of the best cage matches I've ever seen. Kevin Owens take that huge splash on him off the top rope, through the tables on Adam Cole near the end. And that was just insane. They had the women's War Games match on that as well with Dakota Kai turning heel was great. And there was just some really, really great stuff on it. I really, really enjoy it. If you want to watch a really, really fun show that maybe you watch before, you know the results of, you still just want to see it, NXT TakeOver War Games from last year was just a great, great show. Really, really fun stuff. So what else is going on with NXT that people need to keep
so we got actually 3 women's segments tonight. So I'll only go in detail with one, but I'll briefly tell you about the other 2. One was Xia Li got another letter from her Chinese family, opened it up immediately and said, "Mr. Regal, I need a match with Gonzalez next week." And he says,
"Are you sure about that?"
Yeah, basically. And she says, "Yes, I'm sure." So to summarize the first part, that match is happening next week, and we're still not sure what the Chinese are saying to Xia Li, but it apparently can't be good.
Can't be good. I am intrigued about that. The more I hear people talk about that angle, the more I'm like, I want to know what's going on here. Where is this going?
Yep. And we opened the show with Ember Moon and Dakota Kai, and Dakota Kai defeated Ember Moon by pinfall.
Wow. Yeah, that was a pretty brutal match. I saw Ember Moon take quite the splash into the turnbuckle. She was kind of like had her arm
Raquel Gonzalez had her presence felt and distracted Ember Moon. So that is obviously part of the reason why the decision went that way. And then probably the most important and biggest women's segment of the night, we had Tony time. Shotzi Blackheart, Tony Storm in a match. Tony Storm won clean by a pinfall over Shotzi, but the important part was after the match. Candice LeRae on the Tron with somehow, some way, Shotzi Blackheart's tank made it into the middle of a highway. We're not sure how, but Tony said that you left it here, so I don't know what happened.
I don't believe that. No one leaves a tank in the middle of the road. Come on now.
She claims to be protecting it until this big-looking truck pulls up with a masked figurine driving, who went to the back seat, and Candice got in the truck and said, "You cost me my title, I cost you your tank." She ran over the tank, destroyed it. Shotzi Blackheart threw a royal fit in the ring and was consoled by Tony Storm to end the segment.
That's kind of silly. Somebody to console you about your toy tank being destroyed.
So this definitely put Candice LeRae to the next level as a heel. She is taking the role and absolutely dominating it. And it appears that we could see one of 2 things. One, we could still see women's War Games match because with all of these ongoing women's feuds, it would be easy to just put them in two different teams. Or we could just see
Tony Storm and Shotzi are kind of coming together. All right, you
yeah,
kind of
and
see
then
a side there.
you got Ember with them,
Mhm.
and then you got uh, there's got to be somebody else. On the other side, you could have, and you could even throw Xia Li in there with those other ones, and then you got Raquel Gonzalez, you got Dakota Kai, you got Candice LeRae,
Mhm.
Tony Storm fits in there somewhere. But anyway, you have enough, you have the pieces, to make it work. Io Shirai has kind of been kind of away now, even though she's a champion.
Mhm.
So that puts her and Finn Balor both kind of like what's going on right now. But regardless, like I said, Candice LeRae is dominating the heel role, and I really like it. So what do you think about these women's segments? The women are getting a lot of
Yeah,
attention.
they're getting a lot of attention. I think obviously I think there's been a consensus that this is where NXT definitely has an edge in terms of just consistently for the last few months due to injuries, people being stuck outside of the country,
Yeah.
having that edge on AEW. And people, I mean, I think more fans could tell you who the NXT Women's Champion was than who the AEW Women's Champion was in terms of just relevance and how people follow it, right? And that isn't a shot. That's just kind of how the conversation is right now. And so I see this turning into something where you got you got enough storylines that you could weave them into one match. But I wonder, could that really sacrifice the legitimacy of, your NXT Women's Champion right now if she doesn't have her feature on every big takeover show?
I mean, I would agree, but with what they're doing with so many women and so many different storylines, it's almost like, well, who do you put with Io now?
True, true, and
It
it does let
appears
it. Yeah.
it appears we're in the opening stages of getting Ember and Raquel Gonzalez. Candice LeRae and Shotzi are obviously still a
Mhm.
thing. Tony Storm has made it known that she wants to go after Io, and she doesn't really seem to have anything going on after this, so maybe that, but there's so many different one-on-one women's storylines right now that is kind of unusual.
It is unusual, and it is something where I think you're right. It could lend itself to let's weave this all together into one match, and then kind of follow up on different things and see
And you
which
still
ones that
got
are hot.
Ripley. Ripley's hanging in the balance too, with not
Oh
really
yeah,
being.
and they're getting her back to where she once was, around WrestleMania time when she dropped that NXT title at WrestleMania to Charlotte. So there's something to be said for that. And other people want to see Asuka go against Io at War Games. Well, I don't think we're going to see Asuka jump from there. Here's the thing about War Games, though. They haven't made it official they're doing a War Games. I mean, it just kind of lends itself. They didn't say anything tonight about a
Yeah, the
takeover.
only thing we can speculate is that we're expecting to have some kind of show on Saturday, November 21st. That would only give us two more NXTs.
But they
That's
didn't
it.
announce one tonight. That makes me think that maybe they're going to give NXT a takeover between Survivor Series and the other big Raw SmackDown pay-per-view, TLC, in December, right?
So, yeah, that would put them doing a show roughly December 5th or 12th. So we'll see. I'm still banking on something in November, whether it be the 21st or the 28th, this Thanksgiving weekend, you never know.
Okay, but the thing is, we're 2 or 3 weeks out from that. I think if they were
Yes.
going to do this, and this was going to be something like Saturday an NXT show, Sunday the Survivor Series, right? We've gotten that. Something makes me think, specifically with NXT not
Well, with
being
no fans, you don't really have to do that anymore. You don't have to have them all announced at one time.
no.
So,
What if they do this on TV? I know this is something we kind of looked at last week, but you
no, I
don't see
don't
them
know
going in
about
that
that.
direction?
I don't know about that. Not two times in a row, I don't think. But they know it works, like we talked about last
I
week.
mean,
If the
if you
ratings
looked at
prove
that
true,
rating, if you looked at
yes,
that rating for War Games, if you looked at those shows where they did the Great American Bash over 2 weeks and they said it was going to be this,
yes, and they won.
you want to do a December November surprise to really light a fire under
Yes, yeah,
AEW's ass.
and for those of you watching that only watch our NXT AEW show and you didn't catch the Raw show or podcast,
Mhm.
basically, I predicted that NXT would outdraw AEW last week, and I was right.
I don't think they're
Um,
going to be the draw tonight. We all know what's the draw tonight. There's not anything in
well,
wrestling
well,
right
well,
now.
somebody has to win, and being that NXT is the 50 plus demographic, AEW is clearly going to win
Yes.
tonight.
Yes.
But the point of the matter is that we have solid evidence that on three occasions when NXT has ran a quote unquote pay-per-view on a show, they have beaten AEW in viewers. So they know that it works. They can do it whenever they want.
They know that it works. They can do it whenever
with
they
enough
want.
of a notice.
With enough of a notice. But I think if they look at the success of that, like, why do it on the network? Why not do this on TV and do 2 weeks? Do a women's war game 1 week, and a men's war game the next week. You do that. Maybe you announce that next week or something like that. My thing is, if we were going to get it on the tape, if we were going to get something on the network this month, we would. But what they did, NXT TakeOver 31 in October, they announced that what 2 or 3 weeks out, right?
Yep.
So I'm surprised. I thought if we were going to get a takeover this month, they would have already said it. Just kind of lines up that way.
So let's talk about tonight's main event, which was Tommaso versus Velveteen. Pretty much
great to see Tommaso back in the main event here.
Yeah. Pretty much just we got a grudge match here, a nice one-on-one back and forth match. Velveteen Dream lost, and he lost clean. So I don't know what they're doing here, but
the anti Velveteen Dream crowd seemed to really, really like that one on wrestling Twitter tonight. And every time Dream gets in the ring, people definitely don't want him to win.
Here's what people were confused about. They're not really sure who's the face and who's the heel here because they were each playing both roles throughout the match.
Yeah, which is kind of odd, and you do a heel main event. It was weird, the main events tonight from both NXT and AEW that you brought up. Obviously you had Cody in the main event, big star for them, and it's really built up to the promo and him and Darby, but that's not their main top storyline. So they did Moxley, they did the Bucks, FTR, all that stuff almost in the first hour, second hour, and you look at what NXT did, they go with Tommaso, their big champion at the end of the show, but we don't know what that's going to build to. So it's still just a developing thing. It isn't super hot. The burners aren't super hot on Tommaso.
They really pumped in the fake crowd noise tonight, too, for some reason in the main event. It was like the worst it's ever been for NXT on a main event.
Sometimes it is off on Raw and SmackDown quite a bit, or it just feels just a smidge off.
It felt forced. Like, if this were actually a TV match, like in normal times, it would not have gotten this dramatically of reactions.
We have some other people texting in here about other matches, but just want to finish it off here with Ciampa and Dream. What did you think of the experience of the Capitol Wrestling Center? Every time I watch it, I really enjoy it. It has a different gravity to it with fans there, just right around the ring.
It's pretty cool, but it's obvious at this point that all of the virtual fans are reruns from Raw and SmackDown shows. None of them are live. I get you're saying, well, who cares? But I mean, come on.
Who cares? We're chiming in fans, guys. We're chiming in fans. All right. They're doing this to fill the show out. All right. Like I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. And if you're not, you're just reaching for something to find to be angry about, but you're not.
Might as well just put cardboard cutouts then and leave them there.
They just have GIFs. What if it just becomes like an animated GIF of just like just someone clapping the whole time, and then like change to this GIF, boo, yay! It just becomes like just the same 3 seconds reanimating itself. So overall, what do you think of tonight's NXT? It seemed like you were kind of middle of the road on this episode, and especially with we don't know if we're getting a takeover yet. It seems like you got some great matches tonight and a hot angle with Pat McAfee and the Kings of NXT. You're giving it. Wait, is that a 7?
Just a 7.
Just a 7. Not a 7.5, dog?
Just a 7 for tonight.
All right, so he gets a 7. AEW gets an 8.5 for me. I do think, I'm not saying there's no direction with NXT. There is. It just
there really isn't, though. At least tonight.
No, I think there is. It's just I don't think they're coming off Halloween Havoc, a red hot show,
and they know tonight is not the night to be doing all kinds of stuff because nobody's really watching.
And everyone's looking at the news right now. And to a degree, at AEW, just the timing didn't work out that way. You know what I mean? The timing for them didn't work out that way because their pay-per-views don't work like the WWE Network. I mean, if NXT wanted to say tonight we're going to do a pay-per-view on Saturday on the network, they could. They could do that.
Well, they've done stuff like that before. When they did the last Starrcade, it was that Monday when they said, tune in this Saturday night for Starrcade.
I just couldn't see NXT doing that because they're on TV every week and they want to really fulfill the momentum of something like that. But definitely there. Pretty good night around the TV horn here. If you're looking for an escape from everything going on, the headlines of the day, the election and all that news and people now we're looking at my time almost 10 p.m. Central in the Central time zone. We still don't have a final count. It's a stressful time. So wrestling should be an escape for you. And I hope, as I mentioned, I keep saying I'm going to say it all week, even when we get results. Come here and have fun on our shows. Come here and have fun, and just don't talk shiz about that. I'm saying you want to mention it or something like that. It's cool. Just be nice. This is a party. I want our shows to be a party, no matter who you are, who you vote for, red, purple, blue. I don't care. Just come and have a good time and be nice to each other. Because guess what? We're all the baby faces here. All right. We're all the baby faces, and you can become a heel if you so choose. But those are just trolls, and we know who those people are. And you know what? Don't need them at the party. Okay. You know what I mean? So just have a good time. You're at the show here. I'm having a good time. What do you think here? We're now over a year into AEW NXT going against each other. Around this time last year, NXT took the curve. I mean, the ratings we mentioned last week with Halloween Havoc, it went in WWE's direction. You were so proud of yourself when you predicted that. You were so proud of yourself. We talked about this on Monday. Obviously, this is a ratings wash. None of these shows, it doesn't matter. I really think this is an asterisk. It's the night after, and we're still waiting on presidential results. But where do you see things going in the direction? I see AEW having a couple of hot weeks here. They're going to be coming off the pay-per-view next week with some momentum. I think they're going to set up some new things. We're going to know who the world title situation is next week with several big-time players, including Jon Moxley, who is still very much a draw for this company. I see AEW having the edge going into the end of 2020 right now.
Yeah, I'll agree. I'll give you that.
Doesn't mean that NXT can't throw some curveballs. I mean, I think Halloween Havoc was a hell of a curveball.
They just have to snap their finger.
And they just get somebody from Raw. They get somebody from, somebody like that.
See, that's one of the interesting things. Like, and I don't want to trigger anybody or make anybody upset, but
yeah, you're not doing this to provoke anyone. Yeah, okay.
If they really wanted to put an end to the Wednesday Night Wars, they probably could pretty quickly.
And how would they do that? Throw it out there. We've already done our ratings. We're speculating, man. What is it?
You bring in a lot of main roster stars. You start advertising, all kinds of stuff. If you bring in somebody, and now this is far-fetched, but somebody like CM Punk or like that's coming back, if you throw them on NXT, they're going to be ahead. They're going to stay ahead. And all NXT would need to do...
If I was WWE and Punk was back on the table or was at least talking to them or anything like that, and I'm not saying he is, I wouldn't have him on Raw. I wouldn't have him on SmackDown.
How about the shot that would be to AEW because of the rumors that he was potentially going to go there and everything with the contract offer, then he shows up on NXT?
I'm not speaking out of turn or saying anything, but I was at StarCast right outside of Chicago where they had the AEW All Out pay-per-view. Great show. I was there. It was fantastic. And the StarCast convention kind of ran with AEW. And there was some AEW talent doing panels and events. They filmed a weigh-in that they had done for All In the year before. The All In weigh-in was a spectacle. All the talent was there. The main big-time talent. This one, it had big-time talent on it for this previous year, but it wasn't nearly as big. And I was kind of asking somebody, and I go to a source I know that's involved or knows what's going on, and I can't say who that is because it's trusting that person. They trust me. And they said there's some discontent about this. Not a lot, but enough of a side eye from some people on AEW's side about the real focus being this weekend in Chicago, in CM Punk's backyard, was not AEW's All Out, but CM Punk is going to be here. And he's going to have a panel, and he's going to have this big presentation, and we're going to find out whether or not he's going to be at AEW All Out on Saturday night. And Saturday afternoon, he's going to do his own panel, which was on pay-per-view, by the way. He was on his own pay-per-view with that. And you had Conrad Thompson, the promoter of StarCast, the podcast impresario, saying that's not going to happen. He's not doing it. Just come and watch the show. We don't want that pressure on it. But everybody still filed into that convention hall, waiting for him to say and zip down his jacket and say, I literally heard people say he's going to zip down his jacket and do it. And he's going to be All Elite. This is the promotion he needs to be in, so he can really, stick it to AEW, right? And that didn't happen. And CM Punk went so far as to say, enjoy the shows, but don't give your allegiance to millionaires. Like, they fight for you. You don't fight for them. He once said something along those lines. And we put it all out there. 6 years ago, one of the biggest stories we ever covered at WrestleZone was CM Punk's trial against WWE Doctor. So people say that wasn't a WWE lawsuit versus him. Other people would very much say it is. Legally, you can't say it is. But we were there, and there was, people would say a WWE presence around the whole thing in terms of his public war with them as a company and the libel suit and all those things. Unsuccessful in UFC, still a lot of notoriety, doing movies. CM Punk wants to come back. It seemed like it was close. Money talks. And I think he's a guy that if he does come back, he comes back for a lot of money. A lot of money. WWE just had one of the biggest, most profitable quarters the company's had in recent memory. And they expect this next quarter to be a lighter one. And they are telling investors to be ready for that. But what if? Do we get some big curveballs from WWE, like a CM Punk coming in? What's the biggest thing you could see happening from WWE, Cross, Raw, SmackDown? I'm looking past Survivor Series. This I'm not saying this is a lame duck pay-per-view, but as we mentioned, it feels like the Pro Bowl. It feels like we got to have some consequence here. What are some big things you see projecting ahead? We think AEW has the edge on NXT, but curveballs can be thrown. What can WWE do? Is it a CM Punk? Is it something they already have? Is it Karrion Kross versus Finn Balor?
They have a few options they can go with, but I just think they're kind of just seeing how things play out.
Yeah, I definitely see that here. People say CM Punk will go back to WWE. Right money, money talks. That's what someone says here. And other people want a fast food wars on the island of Cyprus. Yes, if you don't know, we are one of the top wrestling podcasts on the Mediterranean island of Cyprus. Thank you guys for once again putting us in the top 100 on Apple Sports in that country, just in that country. Thank you guys for that. All right, so let's wrap it up here for the night. Hope you guys had a fun time, enjoyed the show, enjoyed the fun escape we gave you. The one thing we do ask you is to share the show. All right, I know we're over nearly an hour talk about wrestling, but share the show, tell your friends about it, bring them to the virtual couch here. All right, everyone is welcome. We come, we watch wrestling, we say a bunch of goofy, fun things. I love the people watching the show, the Laurens, Rocks, the James Espantos, William T. Wages, new people joining the show from all around the globe, people listening all internationally on the podcast feed in Australia, in India, Malaysia, someone listening to the show in Malaysia, all right, in all the states, doesn't matter what color they turn on a map, you're all welcome to come and talk wrestling with WrestleZone. Exclusive podcast interviews, by the way, once again, with Eddie Kingston this week, leading up to his big match. If you just love him, you got to listen to that interview. You got to watch it. It's up on our YouTube, our Facebook, and our podcast feed. John Clark, they want to follow you on the Twitter machine. Where do they go?
John R. Clark 12.
I'm going to point at it on the screen. It's right there. You can follow me on Twitter at Kev Kellum. I'm going to be back on the radio for 101 WKQX this Friday night and Saturday afternoon. Very, very much looking forward to that. You can stream it anywhere in the world. iHeartRadio, on our website, 101WKQX.com, and a whole lot more. Also, I'll be on pay-per-view with AAW Alive on November 12th. This will be our third Alive special on Fight.tv. Get it for $13. Watch the whole show live from Bourbon Street, socially distanced and safe. I'll be doing the interviews backstage. I got made fun of for wearing a bad suit. I got to get a nice suit, you know? I can barely have drapes here. You know, and I got to get a nice suit now.
Don't forget to tune in this Friday night because I will be a rare special guest on our Friday night recap.
Yes, that'll be our SmackDown Double Down for the KFC fans and WWE fans. We'll have that for you around 9 Central, 10 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to join in the lives or just, know something's coming down your feed for the weekend to listen to or watch on the podcast feed, wherever, thank you. All right. We hope the next few days are as stress-free as they can be. We already have the pandemic. We already are waiting for the vaccine news. We're waiting for results. We're waiting for all those things. But you know what? The baby face is gonna kick out. All right, he's gonna get up. He's gonna shake those ropes, John Clark, and we're gonna be kids yelling from the rafters, shaking our big foam fingers, hoping the WrestleZone baby face can pick up that big nasty giant of 2020 and slam that son of a bitch off the rope. Lariat-to 1, 2, 3. We're at wrestling. And we're doing one thing when we're watching wrestling. What is that?
That is to